Liav, you can take control of the presentation, and I hope that we don't break the internet with all this intellectual power. This is pretty amazing, actually. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Vitaly, thanks, Gary. Yeah, it seems like I have control. So I'll end. I think it won't be a very long presentation. It'll be around a concept that might tie everything together, that's now being rolled around the industry called ASPM. It is a buzzword. I'd like to demystify this a little bit. Can also answer later, like what do people say when they mean it. I know there is almost everything SPM today. There is identity posture management, cloud posture management. So the A stands in here as an application security posture management. But I want to talk a little bit about what do we see is happening? What's our kind of like high level strategy and approach? It ties a lot to the presentations that were shown here before. So I'll just get going. Basically, it appears a lot of vendors and a lot of industry leaders think there's a need for a different way of working. And the problems of complexity, the problems that also Josh mentioned before about developers not actually incentivized to fix problems, the problems of lack of information of what you need to do. There's a lot of things that could be solved with technology. It's not perfect. It's not solving anything. But I would like to talk about a couple of principles that we do, and also there's a possibility of doing them to get better at releasing secure applications. The following principles is, I'll mention each and every one specifically, and then I'll touch about a few examples and some like practical ways to get started. But I want to talk about like four specific principles. Like one is this notion of complete visibility, of knowing what you have, which is missing in a lot of places. Even if you just look at the problem of third-party libraries, do you know what are your third-party libraries? After the incident with, let's say, SolarWinds, and there has been an increasing trend on supply chain security. And there was this notion of zero trust. Let's not trust anything, any third party we're getting in. So first question is, do you know what third parties you're getting in? And if you look at, let's say, a pattern where you download something from the internet and run it as part of your build pipeline, even if it's a tool, you just say CRL, latest version, run it. Then you're now at the mercy of a third party. So can you actually tell what are all the third party you're dependent upon? And same thing goes for code. Do you know where all your code is? Do you know what all the build tools that are being used to deploy your application? So this notion of visibility is important. The second thing is, let's secure the environment itself. Let's not let source code be exposed. Let's not let potential third parties just wreak havoc in testing environments, steal data. The third thing is, let's use the information we know about the environment to prioritize what to do. So there is a lot of things that are sometimes even up for grabs that you could use to deal with the big number of findings. So Josh mentioned, there's tools is not the solution sometimes, and tools introduce complexity, and process is important. So I would like to also talk about specifically around if you need to build a strategy around how do I start fixing things? So I have a million things open. What do I need to do first? Then just looking at the things and start sorting them by severity. That's like, I heard there's a lot of buzzwords going around, like CVSS is dead, or it's not should be used. But eventually, criticality, if you just look at criticals, you probably have, thousands of criticals. So how do you actually start understanding what to do first? So there is a lot of context, a lot of information that's available, whether it's exploitability data or just data about the project itself. What's the most important projects I need to secure? What's actually part of my application? So this thing is like there's a lot of information that can be used to prioritize. I'll touch about this in a second. And also the process, like collaboration automation means the process. And how can we build a secure process? And actually, well, I'm going to skip visibility. I want to move. Um, I'll go back to this topic in a second. I want to start with this flow, but I like this analogy and using some AI to generate this picture. Um, I think about all the risk of the organization like coming into like one big, in this case, bucket or a tub or full of water. So this is the backlog. But in the meantime, as we like try to fix things, and you can see like water coming out. So there's people trying to fix problems or trying to understand what to fix first. They're kind of like draining the level of they're taking the level of the water down. And the water is the level of risk that we have. Um, there's probably not as much risk as there is there. So if there's a million issues, it's not like crazy risk. There's probably maybe 10, 20% of them that are important. But again, this is an estimation of the risk that we have. So there's two things that needs to be done simultaneously. One is we need to fix the risk, but also um, there is a need to let's say close the tap. So how do you make this stream of water stop from filling this bucket? Because there's always new changes. There's always even new vulnerabilities that are being discovered. So there's actually, if you look at an organization trying to release secure application, they're trying to do two things in parallel. They'll try to take this level of water down, but also try to close this step here, or at least turn around this little knob here, so there's less flow of water getting in. So how do you do both of them? And so to fix more risk, basically, you need to prioritize. You need to find better ways to prioritize and understand what's the best risk to fix. To find root causes. I'll give some examples around this in a second. Also, it sounds very simple, but bulk operations are great. If you could do one thing that solves many problems, this is really good. The best example, like the best technical example, container images. There's usually a lot of the vulnerabilities are coming from just the image you're using. Sometimes changing the image will fix a lot of the problems that you have. I'm not saying anything about the importance of them, but starting a campaign, fixing the problem across the board is very efficient sometimes. Exploitability, data about is this thing affecting me actually could really be helpful to reduce the risk. Now, what the point I would love to make is that actually targeting the no more new is much more efficient for the business. And it's actually eventually, imagine you could almost close this tap here for like a drop of water. So this will create a situation where we have a risk, we can fix it. We'll fix it sometimes, but we actually have a really, really efficient system that actually doesn't create a ton of risks. And the way to actually do this, or do say, like, let's say from now on, we don't want to introduce no new risks into the application, is to invest in the process. And there's a couple of things here. There's obviously more things to do, but I think thinking about this column is very beneficial, and starting to think about what do we do here, and even measuring it. So you could measure how much risk you have and how much it is going down, which is awesome. But if you start looking at just how many new risk was added and is this going down over time, you'll find out you're actually improving. And I cannot also make the case that risk that's getting older, getting more irrelevant. So a password that's been left in source code, hard coded somewhere in a history, if it's 3 years old, I'm not sure it's a password that's valid for something. So I don't say ignore that, but try to invest in the process. DevSecOps guardrails, meaning it's the easiest example. If you start doing, let's say, pull request checks. So if a developer sees the problem as they are trying to merge, they don't have to be blocking. They just see the problem. Let's say there's 20% chance they'll solve it. There's 20% less. You reduce the flow of water here because things are being solved. Creating secure infrastructure, creating secure base images. So if a team of security engineers, DevOps, create secure infrastructure for development, then they're making the development more secure. It's either the code, let's say the frameworks we're working with, like SQL injection. It's still there. It's still in the OWASP top 10. But it's getting down because there's a lot of abstractions and a lot of libraries that prevent this. If you think about this, if this is a problem, there's ways to prevent this from even being happening in the organization if you invest in the infrastructure that actually communicates with a database. Developer awareness, this is extremely important. The more awareness developers have, the less problems they'll hear. Again, it's not an easy thing. Automating remediation, again, automating remediation doesn't mean that things are getting fixed automatically by some AI, which is also, there's a couple of tools that do this today and actually suggest fixes. But it means that the flow is automated. So someone introduces a problem, they're notified about this, maybe in Slack. Hey, you introduce a vulnerable library. Do you need this? Or have you taken a look? Again, doesn't necessarily need to be blocking or preventing the business from running forward, but it gives chance to people to react and fix things. And then it makes it reduces the flow of new things that are getting into this backlog. Eventually, there's another item here that I haven't written here. I think it's hard. I haven't seen, it's very hard to get across the organization, but I think a lot of teams we talk to, they would love to incentivize team to work securely, and they would love to get some sort of a game or a score. So if there is a possibility, it's a very, let's say, it's a big task to carry. But we've seen very large enterprises go the path of giving some score to teams, like how fast do you fix things? What's your SLA when a critical is discovered? Do you have all the right guardrails? So they're scoring the teams and making them compete. And then you create this incentive for teams to actually start and improve their security practices. But then it's a very, it's not an easy thing to do, because if you don't do it properly, you can lose trust. And people say, hey, I don't care about the score. It's meaningless. So I haven't written it here. It's very hard to do, but I feel like maybe as a forecast to where this is going, this is something a lot of people aspire to. Like, how can we actually give developer a very transparent way of understanding what secure development is and let them follow this? So I like to use this model. I think it simplifies how we should think about that. I'll go back for a second and talk about this extreme visibility concept, and to demonstrate how many things are there in part of development and how they're interconnected. So the artifacts, LLMs, and the benefits the organization gets from understanding what they have. So again, responding to an event, where is log? We talked about Log4j a lot in this meetup, but where is Log4j? Where is the critical configuration? If we need to plan something, like what technologies do we use? Then there is great benefits here. I'll go quickly about three things that we engage in and we see that are very successful. One is this concept of contextual prioritization, which is something a lot of the products that are now doing application security posture management are dealing with, which means how can we narrow down the number of open risks or risks that needs to be solved? And one of the things that is interesting to do is to actually try to understand what is the context of something. So if we find a problem in source code, let's say we found a vulnerable library in the code repository, or we found a line that's the static analysis problem, like it's a security flaw. The more we can get about a runtime posture of this application, the more it can help us make decisions. Because mainly we make decisions based on applications. Like, we want to secure the website. We don't want to secure an arbitrary code file. So the more we can say about something, like, is it deployed somewhere to an environment? Does this component communicate with the database? It's very hard to tell whether a specific vulnerability is actually loaded, reachable, exploitable. There are solutions that do that, but it's not the case. If they do it, great. Like, this is a great solution. Like they've been able to single out a couple of issues. But the fact that there is a lot of percentage of findings, there is actually no verdict about. So an easier way is trying to just understand, hey, this code, where is this code going to? What runtime environment is it part of? Is this, again, basic question, is it internet facing? So this is things that some ASPM solutions are engaging in technology to try to inspect the environment and then give these insights. So where is this repository deployed? Or what can I say about this? There's actually a great opportunity of combining insights from cloud products that today have crazy visibility into the cloud with products that know the application risk. So this is something we're engaged a lot into. We find it's a very effective way of reducing noise. The second thing, I mentioned it before, it's like the closing this water tap example, is investing in guardrails. So investing in flows where a vulnerability will be surfaced as part of development. Again, one thing to really note here is that the tool configuration is important. So if everything is surfaced and tons of false positives, people are going to get, even if it's suggestive, they're going to get, hey, this is like, I'm seeing 100 suggestions. So there is a baseline that needs to be done, and it takes some time, but doing it tool by tool, introducing guardrails, non-blocking guardrails, reduce a lot of noise from security teams or not a lot of backlog, like future backlog tickets. And it's a nice exercise to try to measure. And back to Gary's question in the beginning, like how to justify, when you turn on something that prevents or make people fix it as they write code, if you can measure how many problems they've solved, you can actually come back and say, hey, there's 1,000 future tickets that were just eliminated because people just fixed them, in their ID. So if this number could be captured, again, not every tool does that. ASPM tools try to capture some of these and legit try to do this for some. This is a great statistics to go and say, hey, we prevented these so many risks. Look how much we saved because we introduced this thing. It's also, you can make this prediction. So you could look at, let's say, Snyk, and you can, for instance, I'm just taking a tool and then saying, hey, how many things, what's the stream of introduction of new vulnerabilities? And then if you make some assumption, let's say like 10% will be solved by introducing a PR check, then you can actually forecast how many problems we're going to solve. The last thing I'm going to mention is doing some secure Git configuration, which can actually also help solve with security. It helps create a safe environment to write build. Like even branch protection, the fact that somebody reviews code, which is a standard across the board, is important. Sometimes it's not happening. We actually have an open source tool called Legitify. If somebody wants to check it out, it's completely free. That scans a Git environment and tells what are the, there's dozens of checks there that can say, hey, you have a very insecure setup, whether it's the setup puts you at jeopardy of somebody hacking your environment, or you're just not doing secure development practices, which could make you introduce more risks over time. So it's how do you enforce review? How do you use GitHub Actions? Is your build script secure? But again, if just look at Legitify if you want, or Legit Security website. It's a free tool that we released, and it's actually extremely popular. This is a very easy thing to do, and also it's a very rewarding thing. So I'll pause here. Happy to answer after that any questions. I think it sounded like a lot of things to do, but I think to get started really easily, my suggestion would be take a step back, understand your environment, understand what you have, how do you build your applications, and then start introducing step by step some tools that can help you uncover risk, but don't forget to use them. And I'll actually use don't forget to wrap them around a process. Running a tool blindly would be just frustration for everyone. I once heard, and this will be the last sentence. I once heard one of the CISOs we work with told us that some organizations are really like engineering are king. They move forward, they develop everything, they run fast, and security is frustrated because there's vulnerabilities and they can't get anything done. Some organizations, security are king, and then developers are frustrated because they're always restricted. So there is always a tension. And he said, I couldn't get to a win-win. I think what we're trying to do in ASPM is to create a win-win. It's to create a situation where, on the one hand, everybody has data and they know the actual poster and they're working on the same system, so they can trust each other and decide what to do. Again, it's not perfect. The industry is on the way there. But if you would like to see that, check out Legit Security. There's a couple of other vendors. Would love to take this conversation further. And yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Well, I guess my sort of overall conclusion is, other than that, not much going on in this digital universe from you guys, right? Incredibly complicated, and I think all three of you have done an amazing job to distill the complexity into something people can get their heads around. And Lior, or maybe to all of you, I'm not sure. Is your policy to share your slides with people? I know you have a recording that's going to be on LinkedIn. Lior, what is your policy about that?
So we will share it on our LinkedIn page with the recording session. So yes, join our LinkedIn page and get all the information.
And on a personal note, I'm in a very sort of unusual situation. I just have a small office set up, but I have, a lot of connections all over the world from my show, and I've been targeted before. So if any of the four of you want to do a penetration test on my house, I'm not kidding. I really appreciate it, and it has to be a barter agreement because I don't have any money. But anyways, on behalf of a grateful digital universe, to all of you, thanks so much for who you are and for what you do, and most importantly, why you do it.
Thanks so much for hosting. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. You don't have any questions, so thank you very much all. Thank you for joining.
Take care. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye for all. Bye-bye.